Today we are at the house of Reeves who is an Audio Kitchen user and a good and long-time friend of mine. We are here to run through some pedals, talk to him about pedals, how he uses them, how he likes to use the amps in conjunction with pedals, and also how he goes about setting up for his bass tone and all of the kind of ideas that feed into that. In the previous Combover video, we referred to it as a pedal platform, that kind of hackneyed, almost swear word now, but this video is an attempt to demonstrate what the Combover will do when you stick pedals in front of it, so enjoy. Sit down, I mean, of course, it depends on what you were going to record or whatever. But if you were going to, let's say you were going to sit down and play something for the, work out pedals that you were going to take out with the trio.
Yeah.
How would you set that amp? Not necessarily in volume terms, but would you set it pretty clean?
Yeah, I usually think of it more from like a bridge and neck pickup on, almost more like a funk thing, and take the volume back just a tiny. It's weird. Everybody does things that are peculiar, hopefully, to themselves, and one of the ways I set the amp is I tend to set it so that it's got a little more mid, but it's clean. And when I back the volume off to maybe 8, it takes a little bit of that. What is it? The Fletcher-Munson curve. It takes a little bit of the mid out, but it stays clean. When I get that sound on the amp, I know that the way I've got my pedals set will work. And plus, you can hear even this is wide open on the guitar. You're getting some brassiness, but it's not. There's no. There's harmonic warmth to it, but it's not distortion or overdrive. I guess all harmonic warmth is a form of overdrive or distortion. But it's holding together. There's no squash. As much as I like Neil Young, there's none of that deluxe sort of cave-in kind of squashiness. And I start there. That's the way I set up the amp, and then plug my if it's a situation where I have a pedal board that I'm using with the band, I will have set up those pedals at home, hopefully with an amp that is similar to what I'm going to use for full volume. And after I get into a sound that's much like this, I might bring a little more mid in. And it's the kind of sound that for me is I was relieved to read an interview with John McLaughlin where he said the same thing, that he can't play without distortion. So if John McLaughlin can't play without distortion, it's not a forgiving sound. But it's a great sound. And whatever the tone stack is in your amps, makes me, when it's clean, it makes me think of like that Townsend Hiwatts clean.
Okay, yeah.
without the ice pick.
Yeah. I think that was a sound that I was really into at one point, and then just, it becomes really abrasive, I think, and you just, like, you hear it enough, and I don't know, it just, maybe it's a thing when you're younger, you think, oh, it's got top end, it's really great, and it's really clear, but actually...
Well, the thing that I learned a long time ago, was that if you have a sound that is super hi-fi, the first thing, with Bowie when I was, and I noticed it in particular when I was in '96 when I started being the musical director for the band. I don't think rock bands should have musical directors, but somebody's got to run things when the singer's not there, and that when I watched everybody get their sounds, everybody went for like the smiley face EQ. Everybody sucked the mids out, and the guitar lives in the mid range, but it sounded really nice. It was a really nice sound. I can roll. This has a bass roll off, so if I roll some of the bass off, it also takes a little bit of the mid. Nice change. But when the front of house guy puts you in the mix, when you've got that proportion of top end to bottom end to mid range, when an amp, like you were saying, has a lot of top, you'll get pulled down into the mix of the entire band, and by the time it's done, you're audible, but the only part of your tone that's audible is the brightness.
Yeah.
And then you sound like a mosquito. So I've always been about, if not a frown, at least a smirk in terms of the EQ curve,
Yeah.
And so even when I set up the clean sound, like I just put a little more bass, a little more mid-range back into it, that's where I would start. And you can still hear the high it's a high fidelity tone, not to scare any guitar players with the high fidelity, but
a new guitar,
a different guitar, a guitar with two rail hammer humbuckers in it. This one is it's about 12, somewhere between 12 and 14K output. And this one is called a railhammer chisel, as opposed to the railhammer anvil, which is much heavier. And then this is a hyper vintage. This is a ceramic magnet. This is a Alnico. But what I wanted to do is compare the sound of this, which is it's a low output PAF style that's about a quarter of an inch away from the strings, and a slightly overwound Telly style bridge pickup, which is close to the strings. So I've done that to balance out the humbucker with the single coil, but it's a bright guitar. And my point being, it behaves like a Telecaster. But this has put me. That's right where I would want to be before I introduced pedals. That's both pickups again, just like I was running that one. This will probably bark. Yeah, it being as hot as it is, that hits the front end harder. If I was running a distortion pedal with this, the distortion pedal would act as a slight limiter because the nature of distortion is it compresses. So it wouldn't be hitting the front end of that amp as brutally. Plus, I'm using the single strand or dual single strand copper cable, so it's a relatively hi-fi Asta rope cable. And neck pickup's a lot friendlier. For that, just like thing 1 and thing 2, the front end holds up. When I say front end, I mean valve 1 doesn't go.
Yeah.
Which is something. If I want the amp to sound like it's caving in, I can do that.
Yeah.
With the other thing about these amps is, for me, is never trust front of house. I would rather them have to, if there's a section where I'm supposed to be louder or where I have a solo, I might start the solo on, I'm supposed to come in on the downbeat of bar 64, but I might, if there's space, I might feel like if it's a solo, it changes every night for me if it's not a part. I might come in on the end of 2 of bar 63, and the front of house guy doesn't know that. So I need something that I can hit with a booster that's going to give me anywhere from 3 dB to 10 dB jump without collapsing, without compressing.
So if it doesn't matter what gig you're doing, if you've got pedals on the floor, this is going to do the job for the gig. That just has to portray what you've done at home with the pedal board for the gig.
but not to sell the amp short by any means, because one of the things that I really like about I'll go back to and I think it was documented somewhere, but I had the little chopper, and I was in Nashville, and I would bring it to sessions, and with just a little, there were random cabinets I used it with. And then one day I was working at a studio that I knew had a great selection of amps, and being somewhat lazy and kind of not overly into the session, I just brought some pedals and I didn't bring the amp. And when I got there, they were like, "Where's the amp? Where is the amp?" Like, not even where is the audio kitchen, where's the amp? So they sent me back home to go get the amp, because that's the sound and I had worked with that producer on a couple of things, and he really liked the amp is about to explode and die sound that it did, and does, and also liked it for the cleaner thing that it does, which to me, what's the tone circuit that's in it? Is it the Baxon?
In the little chopper, it's just the kind of basically Fender type tone stack.
because he liked the I've used it when someone's asked for a clean Princeton sound, and then I've used it for the Neil Young, Dinosaur Jr., Reeves Gabrel's dying amp sound, and in fact, there's a song on the new album called "Wish You Were Her." That I basically did stereo with a Telecaster I had that had two P90s in it, two low output P90s, and used it through a 112, and basically got to what to my ear sounded like was more in the Who Live at Leeds kind of sound. That clean. That thing where it sounds more distorted, or it's not that distorted, but it sounds more powerful than a regular distorted amp would sound.
It's got a really good snap.
Yeah, and most people don't realize I shouldn't say most people. Some real guitar players will understand that. That under distort amps. You can use less distortion than you think you want to make it sound bigger, and that's the perfect amp for that. And having said that, on the other end of the spectrum, the thing 1 and thing 2, that does that, and this amp has. Does it share the same tone circuit as Thing 1 and Thing 2?
Thing 1 and Thing 2 is the Baxendale, so it's a little bit different, and as you turn the bottom and the top up, the mid kind of stays down. And but the output stage on this is very similar. Yeah, the KT88 is quite a smacky kind of. That to my ears anyway, it's got a really nice immediacy to it.
Well, what I would do next is pedal I use a lot is I use it with the Cure, and I use it on my stuff, and it's usually somewhere on the pedal board. The Model H Bearfoot Effects. Bearfoot Effects is an American company, but uses a lot of the. They work in conjunction with Mad Professor, but they're made in America. And at Model H, it's a Hiwatt. It's supposed to. His whole idea was meant to make a Hiwatt pedal that sounded like the Hiwatt you always. He wanted it to sound like a Hiwatt if you could get more gain out of it.
Okay.
I tend to run it gain light, but let me plug it in and show you. Here's one I prepared earlier. I do tend to run my most of my pedals a little bit, sometimes a little bit at Unity. Well, actually, with the Audio Kitchen amps, I run them at Unity because I know I can still get that few extra dB when I step on the boost pedal. Other amps, Fenders, I never really use Marshalls. Even Hiwatt, when I was using those, I ran them below Unity so I'd have a little bit of extra boost room before the preamp started to shut me down. So that's the clean. What you'll hear is actually there's a transparent. to me, it still sounds like the Audio Kitchen, but it's the audio Kitchen with hair on it, with a beard. So that's just that barky bridge pickup. And I didn't change the settings on that pedal I haven't changed the settings on that pedal for a while, except for turning the volume up and down sometimes. Which points out, again, what we were talking about earlier, which is that once I have the amp set for the tone that I like, I kind of know what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
You know. Pickup, it doesn't get muddy. Now I go to a completely different pedal. I'll go to the Big Rock, which is, this pedal is basically, Amptweaker Big Rock is a Marshall, to my ear, and I think in fact it was designed to be more Marshall-y. That crackling sound you heard was my hand pushing. It wasn't the amp. Up. It still sounds like, you know, not to sound too much like a company man or a fanboy, but it still sounds like, but that's, I guess, why I'm here. It still sounds like an Audio Kitchen. It still sounds like...
So when you're saying it still sounds like an Audio Kitchen now, so
what is that?
Yeah, what's that?
Well, you built it. There's a tightness in the bottom end. It's not flabby, like a lot of amps can't take pedals. Mm. You know, or if an amp sounds good on its own, a lot of amps sound great on their own, and they suck when you plug a pedal into them. Yeah. Or the opposite. They don't sound that great, but they work great with pedals. Mm-hmm. And what I mean, you know, you heard it. We all heard it before. When I was playing through it clean, it sounds great clean. You know, it doesn't sound. It's a good. I can completely bypass my pedal board and have a great clean sound, and that's important to me.
You know, actually, on this one, and I suppose in these terms, it bears a similarity to Thing 1 and Thing 2. On this one, I've put a different law pot on the top control, and that means that in the straight up position, it's less bright than it would normally be. So in a kind of, you know, standard Fendery type tone stack, it would have a linear pot, whereas this has got a log pot. And so to get it to sound more like a traditional tone stack, you'd have to push it round to probably, you know, 2:30, 3 o'clock. But as we were talking about before, the top end thing is not, you're not having to pile on loads of top end. The sound is still there, and the attack, the transient is still there, even without loads and loads of top end.
Yeah, I'm really sensitive to I mean, for some reason, I have well, what I was talking about earlier about, you know, everybody, people getting their on-stage sound, and basically scooping mids out and extending top and bottom, and then sounding like a mosquito in the mix. You know, I intellectually I feel that way, but then in fact I know that I need to have the mids represented. You know, and the top not so crinkly sounding or like cellophane, that I'm gonna sound like a little, you know, it's gonna sound tiny. So that's, I mean, that just seems to be inherent in the amp design. You know, it's not something I worry about.
Maybe, and it's something that I've thought quite a lot about over the years that I've been doing this. I'm not really a guitarist, you know. I can't play the guitar particularly well. I can knock chords out, and you know. And where we met was, I was an engineer at the studio,
right.
And so maybe my ear is thinking about it in those terms. Not obviously, I'm thinking about it as a guitarist. It's got to be nice to play. You've got to want to keep on playing it when you hear what's coming out the speakers. But I've always got, you know, there's one ear guitarist and one ear engineer.
So the one that so you're a little deaf in, that's the guitar.
Exactly. What was that?
Let's hear this now. This being more of a telly up, right?
Yeah.
More of a telly with the same. I spend a lot of time, especially with my own band, a lot of time soloing, a lot of time higher up on the neck. So I'm also sensitive to the fact that it needs to round off the top a little bit naturally, because if you're doing it with the EQ, then it's going to be too dark in other places on the neck. It's almost like you know, it's that magic combination of speakers and amp design, you know, that works or doesn't work. And for a Telecaster bridge pickup, I mean, even the harmonics are audible as notes and as being an octave up or whatever, but they're not ice picking, ice picking. And I think, you know, your demographic maybe is you kind of have to go through Fender and Marshall and Vox and everything else to get your ears to the point where I think you can appreciate everything you're getting with this. But it's also I think a lot of the guitar players that use your amp don't play the way I play. They're not. One would assume that I'm playing through Marshalls, or one would assume that I'm playing through I don't know, boogies or something, or you know, it's more of a it's more of an American. There's a. I'm a rockist, you know. I'm not a pop guitar player, you know, and
who's playing in basically an indie band, which is I love that.
Well, you know, and I'm part of, you know, I'm part of that stew, you know. I mean, you know, there's, you know, with the Cure, there's the collection of characters brings it to a certain, makes it a certain thing, you know, and you know, I have to trust Robert's judgment in asking me to join the band, that he because I know he knows my playing, and I know he knows how I play, and we've done stuff on my records and other things together, so and again, well, that's actually a really good point, because that's why I need to be able to, I need to be able to get that, you know, that kind of, you know, that kind of more, it's easy to get a distorted sound, it's hard to get a good clean sound, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, the audio kitchens cover me for that. I don't have to. I mean, you make that part easy.
And how do you, like, because obviously Robert and you are both playing guitar, so how do you find that? How do you find that the two of you either overlap or don't overlap? And in terms of parts, do you kind of play on a certain song? Will you always play a certain part, or some days he'll feel like a 25-minute solo and you'll just kind of be the safety net, or
it's pretty well defined. I mean, there's stuff, there's, you know, there's songs that where there are solos. I mean, there are parts that have to be played. You know, the biggest pressure of that gig was knowing that if I didn't play the part that was supposed to be there correctly, or I decided to change a couple of notes, the band would know, I would know,
and the 90,000 people.
And then 90,000 people that were singing along to the guitar part were going to know. So I really, you know, that was tough. And then there's a good chunk, you know, there's a percentage of the night where I just can do what I do. But I'm also, because I sing with my trio, I'm very conscious of what, and I didn't realize this. This was actually pointed out to me, that I play guitar behind a singer, informed by the fact that I sing and have fronted my own band and know what I want behind, know what I need for support.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's always maybe been the case for Robert, that he's had the support that he's deserved from other guitar players. But and he's such a distinctive player and has such a distinctive style. There's no reason, and basically, invented that style, in that bandwidth that the Cure exists in. There's absolutely no reason for me to play something that sounds like Robert, because Robert does that. And he was conscious when we talked about what gear I was going to need to do the first stuff I did with the band, the first full bit of touring. He was clear that I needed 4x12s. I needed closed back cabinets.
Right.
Because he had the combo sound covered, and other than that, there wasn't, other than that, I've known him for 20 years, longer, maybe, and so he trusted me to get the right sounds. And when I didn't know how the sound was made or what instrument was, he's got a pretty good encyclopedic knowledge of the last 35 years of playing Cure music. So it's sorted out. But I know that my job is my role sits in a certain space, and it's the space that I'm comfortable in. So it just it works out, and it was this is going to sound egotistical, but it was to his credit that he found there's thousands of guys that could do what I do, but he found somebody that was naturally going to sit in that space and not overlap, and I welcome the fact that like another thing that I have to do is I like playing 6-string bass, which is part of the Cure sound, and the amps sound great with the bass going through it.
And what's this pedal board set up for at the moment?
This is pedal board du jour, really. This is like
merry-go-round.
Well, no, this is as you can see, it's it's just a square, no tiers, no TEIRS. Pedal board. It's like a breadboard. It's I just wire things up and hope I have enough cables already cut that'll make it work, and if not, then I cobble some cables together from the Planet Wave kits are great because they're solderless, and you can cut them and put them together in no time. But so that's the long way around to say that it's just thrown together I got together with some friends 2 days ago, and it was more of a experimental improvisational thing. So I put a selection of pedals together that worked for that. Having said that, there's some, I usually don't leave home without the Source Audio Soundblox distortion pedal, and well, it was the first time out for the Burnley, but there's usually something in that roll. I usually have a booster, a distortion pedal, and the Soundblox pedal, which I keep set for fuzz and an octave up. But I'll go through those sounds in a second. Yeah. Now this is a fairly hot output pickup. It's another rail hammer. I believe this is a
Anvil.
Compression. This compressor, it's a Zvex. I'm gonna be redundant. It's a fairly lo-fi compressor with a little bit of chorus built into it, and it's called a lo-fi junky, so it's acknowledged. It's a little hissy on its own, but I like it so. Cure, I use the Bearfoot Effects pale green compressor, which works, which is probably my favorite compressor. This one because it's got chorus mixed in with it, and it kills two birds with one stone on this pedal board, and I like the way it sounds. It's a little squashier than the other one, but the clean sound thing has been a battle for me, and I was using Hiwatts the summer of 2012 with the Cure, and I liked them, but there was something in the top end that I couldn't get, and I couldn't get my clean sound together to my satisfaction, and so much of what I do is clean or borderline clean with that I really it was on me to figure that the fuck out, because I was otherwise I was doing a disservice to the songs. Even with all the squash that this it's exaggerated, it almost takes all of the front off the note. You can still hear the amp. Which is important. I mean, that's important to me, that I can hear the amp.
Yeah.
If I like the amp. In the past, I've covered up for the amp. Now I'm not covering up for the amps anymore.
I don't know why, but just as you were talking about it there, and maybe because of the conversation that we've had till this point, my maths teacher, who was absolutely superb and helped me through a lot of stuff in my A-level mathematics, she used to have this poster up on the wall in the classroom that said, "Mathematics is the queen and servant of the sciences," which I thought was really, really cool. And I suppose, for whatever reason, because my life has brought me to this point, that's kind of what I would like the amp to be to a guitarist. yes, of course, it's this massive thing which creates a large part of what you're doing, but it has to serve you as well. It's not, it's not over you. You're not dominated by it, but it is a huge part of what you're portraying or trying to portray.
Yeah, well, that's been the weak spot for me, and that's been the growth thing for me with The Cure in the last couple of years, is that I was never a really good, more naturally an improviser. You give me a song with a set of chords and a couple of, hook lines and melodies, and I can do that. I'm happy with that, but I'm going to change it every night a little bit, or I'm going to work around it, or I'm going to improvise against it. And so I've always been more of an improviser, and I've also always used just an overdriven sound, at the very least a slightly overdriven sound. Except for one point in the 80s, but that was a funk band, so that's a different thing. So I come from this weird combination of in terms of practical onstage playing, rock with some funk and thrown in it, and jazz harmony on top of it, and that's and so. But I've always been compensating, I think, for whenever it's come to a clean sound, I've been compensating for the amp in some way. And that's been, or I've worked around it. I will say I've got a Bogner amp that's got 2 gain channels. It originally was made with a clean channel and a gain channel, and Reinhold made 2 gain channels for me because I just had no use for the clean channel. And that's a beautiful, one of a kind amp that he made. But it's not. It is that thing, and it's only that thing. Whereas with these amps, it's like I've got. Yeah, I can make it into what I want it to be, but it's still gonna. The core sound and I get along. So, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So, Fuzz. One of the things that I've found with other amps is that when you run multiple effects and you run delays and you run, if I'm running a loop and I'm playing over it and I've got delays happening, you get distortion. You get like intermodulation and heterodyning and all this stuff going on, which is its own thing. But if you want everything to be clearly represented, you can't do that with a Marshall. Even on a clean setting, you can't do that with a Marshall. There's some kind of stuff that happens in there, that. And so one of the things I found I can do with this is I can make, here's this loop that I was just messing around with. So I've got a TC Electronics Ditto looper on. I've got a Earthquaker Devices reverb, modulated reverb, kind of voodoo-y thing. I've turned a delay on. Let me just that off. I'll shut this off. Okay, so you can hear those delays. This is what the Afterneath sounds like. You heard the looper. So as I start to stack things up and pile things on, other amps get this sort of, it's like, it reminds me of when you're watching Freeview, and your antenna is in the right, and you get those fragmented, and those things. I've certainly used digital confusion on recordings to a purpose, but when I don't want it, I want it to be a choice, what I found is whatever is going on in the front end of this amp, I can do. You're hearing a little bit of echo buildup in the Afterneath and the reverb, but you're still hearing the delay, the loop, and the reverb separate from each other, almost like you were running multiple amps, I think. So, that has to do with the speakers too, but there's no speaker distress at this volume, but really at the end of the day, I think it has to do with the front end. It has to do with what's going on in the preamp section. Yeah. So, to me, that's makes life more pleasant. I can always make a mess, but I can't. Tidying up, even something like that ring modulator sound, you still hear every aspect of that. Which, that's everything, to me, to be able to get back to. also hitting right at this moment. I'm also hitting it pretty hard with a mic. Alright, so I'm going to plug in, after that little run through, I'm going to plug, or as they'd say in Nashville, I'm going to plug up a couple of more normal pedals into this. I already ran the Model H as an example. So just for people that like tube screamers, which personally I have no use for, or Klon pedals. This is a Bogner Wessex, which is their pedals that they've just started making that have Rupert Neve transformer amp. The distortion that I just used on the pedal board was the Burnley, which is their distortion pedal. I'll do this one kind of. It has two settings: normal and enhanced. This is more transparent. Just a little bit of crispiness. That's off. If I go to the bridge pickup. But there's no sag out of the amp. Little more gain. There's like a willingness of these amps to blossom, to go to the first harmonic, that some amps will just sit there, and that's fine. They sound good, but the fact that you can get this to kind of goes up that mountain. So this is another pedal with the amp, obviously. I've been going back and forth on this one. And you can hear that first harmonic. It's halfway between a fuzz and it's the Dover drive, so it's supposed to be a chamber 2 driver and a fuzz face combination, like I guess Eric Johnson and David Gilmour, but it also, when you crank it, the sag is coming from the pedal. But it doesn't sound sterile like a lot of clean amplifiers will when you run something like that into it, it sounds fizzy and box-like. There's no mesh between the amp and the pedal. I've found in the past. Whereas, I mean, to me, it's like a hand. It's a really nice handshake. No sweaty palms there. This pedal to other things.
That's
interesting. And this is making me want to play. So, and I would say that that's down to the amp, because the only difference in the equation is I'm plugging this pedal into this amp, and I haven't done that. One last pedal. There's a pedal called the Bloody Finger. I don't know how many there are in existence. side pedals sound good too.